So why are we so hyper focused on the negative things that happen? Well, I was listening to a podcast with Rich Roll and Peter Diamandis was the guest, and he put it so elegantly. I'm gonna steal it from him. I'll link to the podcast. But he was talking about why do we pay attention to we pay attention 10 times more to negative than positive because it's in our DNA, it's in our genes for survival. If we were out on the savannah and we heard a rustle in the leaves or a rustle in the bushes, and we thought, oh, it's probably just the wind, and it was a lion, and we died, our genes don't propagate. So we had to be almost assuming negative for things that were innocent all the time, because if we made a fatal mistake, it was fatal. Today, we don't have as much of that life-threatening crisis around it, but it's still in our genes. And so this is why when we watch the news, we should just call it the bad news. Negative sells because our genes for thousands and thousands of years have been hyper-focused on that negative because that's what helped us survive, right? If 10 times out of 11, right, we thought lion and it was just the wind rustling, right? That 11th time comes around and it's lion and we were prepared for it, we can maybe that was the difference between life and death. Whereas if we're like, oh, 10 times, all right, it's probably just the wind again, we're gone. And our genes are gone for the rest of the human race. As long as as long as people are around, our genes weren't going to be part of that story. So we had to, as a survival mechanism, pay attention to negative things and even translate what's going on around us in a negative way. Now, this comes to kind of the theme of what I've been talking about for the past, couple videos on, getting into arguments, arguing with fools or, speaking the truth and these types of concepts of where we're going to be out there and it's going to be, we're going to be hyper focused on some of these negative things and we're going to get into arguments with people and there's going to be comments that are bad, and we focus on those things. And we have to understand that that's just human nature. Now, we can slowly start to change that as things get safer in our world, but we have to understand that this is just part of who we are as a species. So I am someone who's what you would say is probably more pessimistic. I'm higher in neuroticism or negative emotion. I'm someone it's very easy for me to look and see the negative. I spot it out. As a personal trainer, this is actually a quality that I need to have because if I see my client doing something that is wrong, I have to correct it. If I don't see that they're doing something wrong, I can't make a correction because I don't see it. So I have to be very aware of it. Now, I should also be aware of what they're doing good and I should congratulate them and give them high fives. I'm not as good at that as I should be, but I am very good at making sure that people do things correctly so that they can, stay safe, so that they can work the correct muscles, so that they can, get into and progress as we go. So there's both sides to everything, but if you're wondering why are we so negative? It's constant, we turn bad things into worse things because that's just where our brains go. But again, it's been a survival mechanism for us. I think we have to have some perspective at times, especially myself. I need to take a step back and go, what am I doing good? What are people doing good? Where can we compare this to where we were 5-10 years ago? Have we made improvements? And if the answers are yes, then this negative mindset and this looking for all these little details that are negative might not be the best thing or might not be the best use of our time, but it's just natural for us to do that. And for me, like when we talk about comments and arguing with people online, I think that is an area where you have to take a step back and go, don't even look at it, right? I mean, that's going to be because you're going to look, and I've got tons of positive comments, but what sticks out at me? What do I remember the most? The negative comments, right? One person said, you should delete your channel. I remember that, right? I remember people making fun of me, taking shots at me in regard to the way I look. I don't remember most of the comments are positive, but those negative ones, they stick out. We pay attention 10 times the amount because we are designed that way, because that's just how things go. If that person, we look at that like the threat of a lion. We look at it as life or death. Because if that person, I mean, think about it. You get in an argument with someone and you go, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You turn your back and that person has a gun, or that person has a bat, or that person punches you in the back of the head. Okay, you're dead. Well, online, it's not the same, right? They can't just come out of nowhere and kill you, right? I mean, they might be able to find you if they could, but there's not the same level of threat, but we respond to it in the same way. So for someone like myself, that can be a draining thing that happens. That can drain my energy, it can drain my mental resources. Like I said, getting into arguments and being online and no, well, you need to listen to me. That can drain me of my energy, and then I don't have the energy to do the things that I want to do. I have to take a step back and maybe not respond, maybe not even look at it. I mean, I'm sure as people get popular, it's impossible for them to see all of the comments and all of the engagement that's going on with the videos or the content that they make. But it's a choice, whether you're a small channel, whether you're a big channel, whether you're, someone who has, reviews about the movies that you make or the books that you write or whatever it might be. You can choose not to look at those things, and you can just create, especially if you know that you're coming from a good place. Now, there's always feedback that we need to look at, and we need to have what they call constructive criticism. Like, hey, you could do better here. Like me as a personal trainer. Hey, you could do better here. Your effort's not where it needs to be. You need to work on, pushing your hips back in the deadlift, whatever it might be, let's just say. So we can use that in a way that's going to propel us forward. But the negative, just for the sake of negative, if we're focused in on that, it's going to tear us apart. And so we look at that, it's normal, but someone like myself has to find the balance of putting that in front of me. What's going on right now with these fires, the destruction of these fires in California, just north of where I live, it's crazy. I don't watch the news, and I found out about this stuff way later because it affects me. The negative stuff, it affects me. So I've chosen not to engage with those types of things, the news media, like lots of different social media, because I go straight to that negative, and it consumes me like a fire consumes a house. When it catches on, for me, it consumes me. I lose sleep over this shit. So I have to separate myself for that, and I don't engage with it. I don't have TV. I don't watch the news. I don't look up the news on my phone. I'm away from a lot of things. And people say, well, you need to be informed. I'm informed, like I said, through the people that are around me. And if fires were burning nearby, I'd know about them because I would see and smell smoke. But, I choose not to engage with those things because I know what it does to me. Now, I also have to take that medicine for, like I said, in regard to comments and with this engagement with what I'm doing here on this channel. So it's tough. You have to set boundaries. Like I set boundaries in regard to what I consume with media. I have to do the same things when it comes to my channel. And I think that is something for us as human beings to learn, that it's not your fault. But now that you know that, can you set those boundaries? What are the areas that you might want to limit because you know that that's going to be something that you focus on? Because if we didn't focus on that back in the day, we wouldn't survive. So it's a survival mechanism. Now it's run rampant. Now news media and the way that we push things is just constantly negative, because we know, psychologists know that we're going to respond to these things in that way. And it's going to get more, there's tons of posts now where you see this, where people are purposely putting things out there. It's a lie. They're not being honest. Go watch my channel about being honest. They're not being honest, but they're putting negative things out there. They're saying wild things so that people will get a response. They're doing crazy things so that they know that there's going to be a negative response, because the algorithms respond better to the negativity, because that's just how we're wired. So we can choose to do better. We can choose what to engage with, but at some level, we don't really have that choice. You have to cut it off at the head. For me, is not engaging at all or not even looking at it all. So certain areas like that, we have to set those boundaries. Easier said than done, but that's how you're going to get ahead of that genetic, advantage that we had. It's an advantage for us to survive that we saw the negative, but we have to get ahead of that. So that's all I had for today. I thought that was an interesting concept and it kind of related to what we've been talking about. So that's it for today, and do your best to stay positive. Obviously, wade yourself through the negative, but maybe like myself, maybe you need to have less of a relationship with some of these outside things. You got to know what's going on right around you. Like I said, I want to make sure I know, that there are, hey, is there a fire here? I have people in my life. And I think that's one of the things is if something is that serious, you're going to find out about it within your circle of people. I'm constantly with clients. If I was someone that was by myself all day and I worked at home and I didn't have a family or anybody else around me, then maybe I would want to start looking at the news, especially local news. But the fact that we know what's going on around the world, all the negative events that are going on in every country around us, to me, that just drains me. I don't know if it drains you. Maybe you're someone that maybe needs to take a step back from those things. But if it's not important, if it's not knocking on your front door, like some of these fires were for some people, then what's the point of us making more chaos in our own heads that we can't even affect, especially if it's on some other country that's thousands of miles away. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Talking about that, maybe you need to be like me and kind of disconnect from that. But don't get mad at yourself when you do find yourself being angry or being upset at these, negative events or some of these posts that are meant to be, provocative and negative so that you engage with them. Don't beat yourself up. Just know that that's what it's there for, because they're trying to tap into that genetic thing in our body that was built from thousands of years of us trying to survive in the wild. So it's there for a reason. If you need to set boundaries, do that so that you don't get, like me, lost in the chaos of your own mind. That's it for today. See you next time.